yeah, like my opening was going to be like, I was going to say, I was like, well, they're probably all wondering what happened. I got a new haircut. No, but yeah, I broke my wrist it was last Saturday. So that's why I wasn't here last Sunday. And then I was a little sick this week, so it was not the best week, but I'm here today, and the Lord allowed me to wake up this morning, so it's a good day. So today, I'm continuing on Pastor Devin's series on the essentials, and like the essentials of being a Christian and the essentials of being a follower of Jesus. Sorry about that. So, from the title, you might think it sounds kind of familiar. The Great Omission. It's almost something that we've heard before. And you might be like, got it, it's the Great Commission. Like, that's what I've heard before. So what this sermon is all about is the importance of the Great Commission. The importance of teaching people. The importance of making disciples. So, when I was thinking about a way to start this sermon, I finally figured out a start, and I was like, how in your life, we've all seen leaders. There's leaders everywhere. There's leaders in politics. There's leaders in athletics. There's all sorts of different kinds of leaders. Who's the most successful leader that you know of? What is it that they do that makes them successful? Like, what do they talk a lot? Do they simply tell the people in the group what to do? Or are they the ones who are serving the people in the group? Are they the ones who lead by their actions? In my life, I've been a part of many different teams and groups. I've been in class projects. I played sports, and as all of you know, I've talked about it, I think in every sermon, I worked at Camp Adventure. And in all those different teams and different groups, I realized that the people who had the biggest impact on the group, the people that truly led the group, were those who are willing to serve. And those who are willing to put the group before themselves. Like, for example, when I played football, my freshman year, it wasn't the people who were the best on the football team that I looked up to. It wasn't those who maybe scored the most touchdowns on Friday night. But it was the ones who took time to care for the younger classmen. And took time to see if we were doing okay. And it was the ones that offered me rides after practice. Those were the ones that I looked up to. Because they were the ones willing to be that servant. And those same guys were the ones that always showed up to practice early and always stayed late. They put in that extra time necessary. They gave up some of their time for the betterment of the team. Not necessarily for themselves. I mean, yes, it helped them get better, but it also helped the team out a ton. And they were willing to give up that time in order to lead. And I honestly thought that those people, the ones who put in that extra time, they had a so much bigger impact on my life than the ones who simply did really good on Friday night. The ones who were willing to be a servant were the ones that I looked up to. And it was the same way at camp. At camp, there was a staff of about 16 people, and you could tell who the leaders on the staff were. Because they were the ones that whenever there was a clogged toilet, they were the first ones running over there to fix it. Or whenever there was a tree down on a path that needed to be moved, they were the first ones going over there to move the tree. They're the ones who, when asked to do something, they didn't think, oh, you know what, I got this, this, and this. It's been a long day. I'm tired. I'm just going to pass it on to somebody else. Someone else will take care of it. I don't need to. Those were the leaders, the ones who were willing to serve others and to give up their own time. They put the team and they put others before themselves. How many of you are fine with just being a Sunday morning Christian? If you believe that you are a Christian, then you are called to do something. Jesus calls us in the Great Commission to go make disciples. It doesn't say, please make disciples. It doesn't say, that'd be really cool if you did, or you should. No, it's a command. It says, go make disciples. So if you truly believe that you are a Christian, if you know that in your heart, then this message is for you. Because my message is all about how to make disciples and why it's so important to be a servant in order to make disciples. There's a great passage in Matthew chapter 20, verses 20 through 28 that highlights exactly this point of being a servant, and then what that will in turn allow you to make disciples. Then the mother of Zebedee's sons came to Jesus with her sons, and kneeling down, asked a favor of him. What is it you want? He asked. She said, grant that one of these two sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom. You don't know what you are asking, Jesus said to them. Can you drink the cup I am going to drink? We can, they answered. Jesus said to them, you will indeed drink from my cup, but to sit at my right or left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those for whom they have been prepared by my Father. When the 10 heard about this, they were indignant with the two brothers. Jesus called them together and said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. So in the beginning of this passage, you have a mom and her two sons coming to Jesus, basically asking that her two sons be great in heaven, to be able to sit at the right and the left hand of Jesus. That was a huge, astronomical honor. And then Jesus replied by, he seems astonished that she would ask that, because he replies you don't even know what you are asking for. Because that, to be able to sit at Jesus' right and left hand, those are places of huge, huge honor. And the other 10 disciples were pretty upset with these two. They were pretty upset that they had gone and asked Jesus for this. Because I could picture them bickering amongst each other, why do they get to sit there and they're why can't I? And they all started arguing about it. Because they all wanted this high position of honor. They all wanted to be great. They wanted that, to be able to sit at his right and his left. But then I love how Jesus responds to that. Let me read 26 through 28 again. He says, not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. And whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. In verse 26, he says, in order to be great, you have to be a servant. That's something that I feel like in today's culture, we don't ever hear that anymore. Because in today's culture, we're like, the people that are great are those who are wealthy, are those people who make a lot of money, are the actors, the athletes, the politicians, all those people that we see on TV every morning. Those are the great people, right? Because those are the people like everybody knows. But no, Jesus says, in order to be great, you have to be a servant. Now, when we think servant, we probably think like the lowest of the low. We might think like housemaids or people that just serve a master. In order to be a servant, your whole line of work is devoted to working for a master in order to like serve a master. That's what servants do. Servants serve somebody. But I just think it's great that he says in order to be great, that's what we have to be. We have to be willing to serve those around us. We have to be willing to serve those people in the community, those people in our jobs. We have to be willing to be that servant. But like I briefly talked about earlier, in order to be a servant, you have to be willing to put others' needs before your own. You have to be willing to take time away from your own needs, your wants, and to put others first in order to truly be a servant. And we have a great role model of a servant, the perfect role model of a servant in Jesus. His entire life was built around serving us. The purpose of him coming to this earth, as he says in verse 28, it wasn't to be served, but to serve. And I think that's amazing because he's called the King of the Jews. He's our Savior. And he didn't come to this earth so that we would serve him and glorify him, but he came to this earth to serve us. Ultimately, to die for us so that we could live. So that we could live free from sin. Through him. His entire life he served. He healed people. He preached. He fed people. Huge amounts of people that he healed, fed, and taught. He affected so many people's lives simply by serving them. His entire life was dedicated to serving others. Not once was he like, you know what, I'm going to take a break today. I'm not going to heal them because, I could be doing better things. I could be hanging out with my 12 pals, doing plenty of other stuff. But no, his entire life was built around serving others. And ultimately, he paid that sacrifice of his life. He literally put his life before our lives. I said that backwards. He put our lives before his own life. That's the true meaning of being a servant. He put all of us before his own needs and his own wants. And he died for us. That's the ultimate meaning of being a servant, is to be willing to do that for someone else. And I'm not saying that you need to go and jump in front of a train for somebody. But Jesus is that example. You need to be willing to give up your wants and your needs to serve those around you. If you want to be great, like Jesus says, if you want to be great, You have to be willing to be a servant. You have to be willing to give up your wants and your needs for those around you. And like I said, being a servant doesn't necessarily have to end up in you giving your life for those around you. But it means simply putting others before yourselves. Like, for example, it was 2 weeks ago, I was walking back from class, and I stopped in at the dining court to grab some food before heading back to my dorm. So I went in, got some food, carried it out, put it on a table, and I was putting it in my backpack so I didn't have to carry it back in my arms. And I had my ID card, which is what I used to pay. I put it on the table, and I was like, I'll remember I put it there. So I put it on the table, grabbed my food, left. I was 2 blocks from the dining court. And then someone comes up to me and taps me on the shoulder, and I jump a little bit because I didn't expect that. So I turn around, and he's like, you left this ID card. Here you go. Some complete stranger. I had never seen the person, and I didn't know them before, but they had gone 2 blocks to return my ID card to me. They didn't have to do that. They took time out of their day, took time away from their own lives to serve me. They could have been having to go to class after that, or they could have gone straight back to their dorm, seen the card and been like, you know what, it's fine, someone else will take care of it. But no, they decided to put my needs before their own. That without even thinking, they grabbed that ID card and went and took it to me. After they gave it to me, I was just astonished. I thanked them several times, but I was in shock. Because, I go to Purdue, and people are like, oh, that's a Christian school. There's not good Christian people there. But there's good people out there everywhere. And there's people willing to be servants everywhere. But that little action of simply going out of his way 2 blocks to return my ID card to me, it changed my entire day. The rest of that day, I was just happy. And I knew why. It was because he'd done that for me. And it just shocked me that someone would be willing to go that far out of their way to serve me. To serve a complete stranger. They had no idea, that they didn't have any idea who they were, that someone had done that for me. So if you truly want to be a servant, you have to be willing to go out of your way to help other people. You have to be willing to go out of your way to help those around you. You might be thinking, okay, what does being a servant have to do with making disciples? You might be out there thinking, how does serving people help teach them about Jesus? Well, I'll explain it like this. Without first being a servant and putting others' lives before your own, there's no way you'll be able to show them or tell them the true love of Jesus. It's like fishing without using bait or without using a lure. If you aren't willing to be a servant, then there's no way people will listen to you and believe that there was this great servant before. That there was this great person who gave up his entire life so that we could live. Because when you are a servant, it truly affects the hearts and the lives of the people around you. When you start serving them out of love, it starts changing those lives around you. And then just like the bait is what attracts the fish to the hook, being a servant shows someone that you love them. And then it plants a seed in their mind, and they're like, why would that person go out of their way to help me? Why would that person take time out of their day to help me? But without being a servant, without being willing to put others' lives before your own, it's like fishing without bait or fishing without a lure. And I've done it before, and I've never caught anything without using a lure or some kind of bait. Because in order to truly show people that you love them, in order to show them and tell them the true love that Jesus has for us and the true love that He shows us each and every day, we have to be willing to serve others. And we have to be willing to strive to be like Jesus. Because Jesus is that ultimate example of what a servant is. Because He was the ultimate servant. Literally putting His life so that we could continue to live. So if you truly want to make disciples, you have to be willing to serve. And I just think that it's amazing that, Pastor Devin probably planned it this way, but I think it's amazing that this message lines up with communion. Because communion is where we remember the sacrifice that Jesus made for us. It's where we take time to remember that He died for us so that we could be free from sin. And I just think it's an amazing time to get to remember that sacrifice. And when talking about being a servant, He's the perfect one to look at. Because He was always a servant. Every single part of His life, it was devoted to serving others. And imagine how many people that you see in a week. Imagine if you served just 2 of those people. If everyone in this room simply served 2 of the people they come in contact with during the week. That would change so many lives. So many people would be affected by that. And you would truly be able to create those disciples that Jesus calls us to create. And then so many lives would change because were willing to be a servant. You are willing to put others' needs before your own. But in order to be that servant, you have to be willing to do that. And I believe you all can do that. And I believe this church can truly change people's lives. And it can truly be that light in the community.